this is a really important point that I want everyone to get. It's a little bit like, you know, when when a pastor of a big American church comes out as gay and they've spent their whole career hammering the gay community, right? There's two things that happen. The first is, mate, if you've found love with a bloke and that's your authentic self, more power to you. But that doesn't mean we can't hold you accountable for all that bullshit you said while you were hiding away in the cupboard about other people who are actually part of the same community as you. So in other words, I don't and we don't criticize someone for taking and realizing that life choice, but we can criticize them for the stances and the ideas they've put out against that community. We're now going to talk about Steven Crowder. Not that he's come out, but he has spent his career speaking to the morality of people, speaking to people's life choices, and pointing the finger at what he would describe as immorality, low character, you know, that sort of thing. So he's been very pious about where he stands on things like family and marriage and that kind of thing. So on some level, his divorce has validity to talk about just because of that, right? But not a lot, to be honest. But then what he says in his message and how that links in with conservatives in America allegedly are looking to maybe try and challenge no-fault divorce, that becomes very newsworthy to talk about. And also, when we get out the back of this, for someone on the conservative side of American politics who constantly screams about freedom and choice and don't tell me what to do and don't tread on me, it feels like someone is very, very controlling about what a woman wants to do. I know you might be surprised that this conservative American commentator is got quite a lot of opinion on a woman's right to choose something, but ironically, that's what we're going to hear a little bit about tonight. So I'm going to play you 3 quick clips. This was released today, and if you don't know who he is, then this probably won't need much to you. That's why I'm saying this is bigger. It's about divorce in America as well. But Crowder is an incredibly high-profile American conservative commentator. You can see he's got his handgun on the desk there, and he's got his Rumble thing there. But you know it was serious because he often wears a holster, like an empty holster, while he's talking. So you know he's putting on a serious face because he hasn't got his holster on today. In fact, he always wears a holster. I wonder if he's not wearing his holster on this one because he's talking about divorcing his wife, and he didn't want it to be interpreted in any kind of way. That's just my wondering out loud, but you don't often see him without his holster on. And there you go. He's got his Rumble thing there and, you know, yada, yada, yada. He came out today and he made a statement about his divorce, which has been a well-kept secret from the community for a couple of years. And I'll just play it, but listen to what he says. The things that he says and the things that he offers without any prompting, like he says in this first clip, there was no physical abuse. And I just thought that's a really weird thing to offer without being prompted. You know, like just to offer it. Chewy, if I said to you, and look, be really clear, I'm not making any accusations here, but if I said to you, Chewy, that I just broken up with my partner and with no prompting I went, oh, but there was I didn't hit her. Like just offering it from nowhere. It's just, I'm not saying that's what happened here, but it's a peculiar thing to say. He also makes it very clear there was no infidelity. And then he starts to talk about the state of Texas. And he's almost describing the state of Texas like it's this woke, you know, ridiculous place that even allows women to make their own choices. So we'll play this clip first of all, then I'll get your thoughts on this, Joey.
I have been living with a proverbial boot on my neck for going on years now.
Sounds hot.
Since 2021, I've been living through what has increasingly been a horrendous divorce. Now, let me say on the outset, to be clear, there is no infidelity, any kind of physical abuse at all on either side.
That you just offer that.
And no, this was not my choice. My then wife decided that she didn't want to be married anymore. And in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted. It's been the most heartbreaking experience of my life, what I consider to be my deepest personal failure. And just so you know, my opinions on parenting and families have not changed. I've always believed that children need a mom and a dad, that divorce is horrible. And I still believe that children need a mom and a dad and that divorce is horrible. but in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter. In Texas, divorce is permitted when one party wants it, period.
In the state of Texas, divorce is wanted, is whatever word you use, is allowed when one party wants it, period. In other words, if I could have stopped it, I would have, Chewy. That's clip number 1. Any thoughts?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Just take the loss. Your wife wants out. That's what it comes down to.
I hope that this was unscripted and live. Because if it was scripted or pre-recorded, I'd be like, what did you just say? So what you're saying is, in the state of Texas, a woman is allowed to divorce a man even if the man doesn't want it. Yep. So you're saying that's a bad thing. I think it's it's obvious to me. Correct me in the chat. That comes across to me like he's saying, yeah, it's not fair. She wants it, I don't. It's not fair that it can happen. JK says...
So if only one person wants to be divorced, then they should be forced to stay married. That sounds insane.
Exactly. Right, let's play the next little clip. It's only 30 seconds, this one. And it's talking about, this is the other thing that's a bit weird, and this is what I'm saying about the things that he offered. He starts talking about his children's physical safety. Now, I've been through a divorce, and I have children that went through a divorce. At no point did I ever think my children may be in physical harm for some reason. Again, I just sit back and I go, I wonder why he offered this. I wonder why he made such a big point about telling us all that his children, it was done because of his children's physical safety. And he also wanted to make very clear his 2-year-old children, I think they're under 2 actually, 1.5, 2-year-old children, that it wasn't their fault he got a divorce. Because, a normal person might think, oh, those fucking kids, they always divide and conquer, don't they? Those 18-month-old kids, they're always the reason for divorce. So again, it's just a strange offering to be made about why he's gotten a divorce.
So for well over a year, in the best interest as well as physical safety of my children, we've decided to keep this issue private and to resolve it privately with the appropriate attorneys, what have you, legal jargon.
Until now.
And all this, one thing I want to be really clear about is certain. True north here is that my children are blameless, completely without fault, and so we decided to resolve these issues privately, as it's in their best interests, both emotionally and physically, to do so.
So twice, emotionally and physically.
That's super weird.
And when you say that person's blameless, what you're saying, right, is don't put any blame on them for this thing happening. Who would put blame on an 18-month-old for a divorce? That's what I'm saying. It's just a bit peculiar. And I'll play this last clip. And this last clip just kind of reiterates everything that's been said so far. But there's a certain amount of passive aggressiveness towards his ex-wife here as well. I'll just play it for you. But, listen to those things that are being offered, which maybe you're wondering why they're being offered.
It's pretty simple. I loved a woman so much that I married her. A woman who, despite all of this, I still love as the mother of my children. And she wanted something else for her life. That's not my choice. She simply wanted out, and the law says that that's how it works. Now, of course, look, I get it. There are multiple sides to every story, but one thing that is undeniable in this case is that it's no one's fault but my own, in that I picked wrong, and that's certainly not the fault of my children. And I will say that what's in the best interest of my children is not internet drama, speculation, certainly not blatant or veiled shakedowns or dragging their father or mother, and I can't be clear on that enough, or their mother through the mud. And to anyone who tries it, I'm no longer going to pacify, capitulate, or sidestep because
it's like
I love them a whole lot more than I love you. And I will continue to do whatever is necessary to protect my children. Discussing the divorce any further on social media or on this show or in any public space is not what's best for them. I'll be handling this through the proper legal avenues and channels available as a matter of record in which I have more than full confidence. So I'd ask that you understand the need for and respect our privacy and what is obviously a pretty tough time. And I hope that none of this has to go any further than that.
So there you go. They're the 3 clips here. I've got more to say about who Steven Crowder is, and then about the actual marriage thing in America. But what I mean, like the whole I picked wrong, you know, pretty aggressive type thing there. But again, talking about in this current legal system, you're allowed to do that, implying to me at least that you shouldn't be able to. What are your thoughts?
I mean, in that last clip, there's some reasonable things to say there, right? Please respect our privacy, rah. But then it's bookended by weird kind of threats, right? Like, if you talk about me, I'm coming for you. That sort of thing. It's just strange. Just, yeah, I picked wrong. Okay, dude. Sure. Like, and I mean, I have problems with the fact that obviously this guy has a hell of a platform, and I'm sure his wife doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty one-sided foghorn that he's got to lean on.
There's this other side to talk about as well. And again, I've been pretty consistent on this. I remember, for example, various high-profile people, pardon me, in New Zealand who put their marriage in Women's Day or Women's Magazine X, put the birth of their first child in Women's Magazine X. And then when they went through a divorce was like privacy. And to be honest with you, I kind of go, hang on, but you have created an appetite for your lifestyle. You have invited the public of New Zealand into your marriage. So therefore, if this is the swan song, if this is the final episode of your marriage, then you have created an atmosphere where people want to know. So now, whether that's right or wrong, good or bad, I don't really have a commentary on that, but I do have a commentary on if you're going to play the game when you want to, you can't really try and call it quits when you don't. So the whole privacy thing, I struggle with people who have chosen to build their careers and profile around allowing people inside their private walls. Now, Crowder, for example, has spent a career doing that. I'm going to play you a little clip here from one of the calls he made. He wasn't happy with the way a journalist wrote a story about him. And so he called her up, or she called him, and they recorded her without her knowledge. And then I'll play you like the last 40 seconds of it. And then at the end, you hear him say, "Are you aware of the one-party law?" Which means only one party in Texas needs to know you're recording the phone call. So she didn't know, and guess what he did? He massively breached her privacy, but legally.
Is there anything else?
No, I think that's good. I appreciate. I would welcome you on the show. We have to go tape one here right now, but I appreciate you taking the time. And do you have any other questions for me?
I don't, and if I do, can I reach you through this number?
Best bet is probably an email, actually. This number isn't always readily available, and someone isn't necessarily by the landline. So, yeah, no, an email would be great. Appreciate it. And one last thing. You're aware that Texas is a single-party consent state, correct?
What are you asking me?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
There you go. So she didn't know she was being recorded. You know, he did it. He played it out. It's her privacy. He didn't worry about that. He's got a whole segment on this is his website here, called Crowder Confronts, right? Where he does things like turns up to people who he disagrees with, or who have said something about him, or said something that he disagrees with, or sometimes validly done something really bad. And he confronts them, like, for example, here in their place of work. Doesn't care about the business's privacy, the people in there, anything like that. It's called door stopping, yeah? And it's a really bad practice. So, yeah, good. I see Emma, I like that clip as well. So in other words, he's kind of built a career on some level around not giving people their privacy. So when he says now, I want my privacy, it's like, well, live by the sword, so to speak. And I'm not about it. Now, the last part of this conversation, and I know you've got something to show, Chewy, so we'll get to you first. We're going to talk about what he's an example. He's given us the most concrete example, I think, of the rumors that have been going around what conservatives are going to try and do in America. But before we do that, Chewy, you want to add something in?
Yeah, well, we've got a few chats here, but we've also had a few people say, I don't even know who this guy is. And
yeah, sure.
That's good. I didn't really know who he was until quite recently when Pat mentioned him. I had seen him before, though. He's part of a pretty popular meme online, and that was weaponized almost straight away when this comes out. He likes to go to more liberal universities, set up a table with a controversial opinion, and just invites people to try and change his mind.
Here, I'll steal it back off you for a sec, and I'll just show
Yep.
this, and then I'll go
Go
back
for
to you. There you go. There are only two genders. Change my mind. I'm pro-gun. Change my mind. Male privilege is a myth. Change my mind. Male privilege. There are only two genders. Rape culture is a myth. Change my mind. And what he does is he goes on to universities, and he talks to 17-year-olds. This 45-year-old man who knows every argument, knows every angle, has been doing it for a long time, and he goes on to university campuses and debates 17, 18, 19-year-olds, and normally makes them look, embarrass them quite a lot. Now, that's not going to be a privacy thing because they choose to get in front of the cameras, but that's what he does. The big brain 45-year-old with a lot of world experience, and certainly who's been doing this full-time for a very long time, beats up on 17, 18-year-old students who are just in their first stages of trying to figure out life. But yeah, so that's what he does. And Chewy, this meme's come out?
Yes, my wife wants to leave me, change her mind.
Yeah.
Which I think is very, very funny.
Yeah, it's very funny.
As
And
far
you know,
as
do you know what's particularly funny about this? You see the change her mind? The person who's photoshopped it is also, obviously it said change my mind, and they've actually photoshopped a little piece of paper over the my to her as well. So it even looks like it was change my mind, and it's been changed even in the Photoshop to look like it's been changed in real life to her mind. I think that's the cleverest bit.
in the chat, One Eye Cat says evangelical Christians say the only grounds for divorce is physical abuse or adultery. So maybe that was a reason for specifically mentioning those two things.
Maybe. I saw Rob had a comment about getting ahead of something as well.
Yep.
That was it. Yeah.
Rob said that he's setting something up, getting out ahead of a potential story.
Yeah.
Ro here thinks we're misreading it a little bit. It's a shitty thing for him to go through. I think he's just trying to get ahead of the shitstorm as he's a public figure. He's hurting, which I think, to be honest, yeah, I could see that.
I can see that, but remember, he's just come up as an example today of the next part of the story we're going to talk about. So you could be right, Ro. And also JK is mentioning that, okay, fair call for him, Pat, but not his kids or wife. I don't think we've talked about his kids or wife, and I don't think we will, because I don't know who his wife is or who his kids are. But anyway, he's the one that's kind of put out there. He, as a conservative Christian, alt-right commentator, he constantly judges people and tells people about their lifestyles and life choices and that kind of stuff. So this is him going through something now, and he's wanting to say, don't talk about us. I mean, that's the hypocrisy of it all. But then we'll go on to the last part of the story, which is also, where is it? There it is. This is the story. This was actually coming out in America at the end of last year. Now, as I read this to you, think about what you've just heard in the example about the conversations around Texas. And I didn't get it exactly quoted, but I've written it down. The state of Texas allowed a woman to divorce a man even if the man doesn't want it. He didn't seem happy about that. That's how it came across to me. Conservatives are coming for no-fault divorce. This is August of last year. Now that Roe versus Wade has been overturned, Republicans are looking ahead to their next moral crusade, and it sure looks like they've found one in divorce. A new report from Media Matters for America shows a rising trend of right-wing influencers and Republican leaders and politicians, including U.S. Senate candidate J.D. Vance, advocating for the end of no-fault divorce, a policy that allows people to end a marriage without being required to prove wrongdoing by their partner, including adultery, abuse, or desertion. No-fault divorce, which was first enacted in California in 1969, has always been a feminist issue. It's allowed domestic abuse victims to leave a bad marriage without onerous barriers, and it certainly empowers women and all people to escape legally binding situations with someone they don't love. One would think no-fault divorce is a no-brainer, a completely non-controversial issue decided half a century ago. So for people who are thinking, if anyone is thinking, you know, like what we're talking about with Stephen Crowder is a bit on the nose, maybe a bit unfair, I wanted to talk about that because the way he was speaking about the laws in Texas seems to me to be completely linked with this allegation as of August of last year, Chewy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but maybe this just makes sense to me, right? Like one party divorce just makes sense. Like, please, husband, I wish to leave the marriage. No.
Yeah.
Just seems kind of fucked, especially if it's from an abusive relationship. Not that I know that his is or anything, just generally.
No
Like,
one's
you
implying
should,
that.
You should be able to go, I'm out.
I've been
I'm
really
out.
clear.
It's not working.
I'm not implying, even though it was kind of a question, about there being abuse in that relationship, but it was really weird. I've never heard anyone saying, I split with my wife. By the way, there was no abuse. Like, I don't think I've ever heard that being offered without some kind of prodding. That was the thing. It was just a bit weird. I don't think that means anything. There's no evidence we have that means anything, but yeah, it was peculiar. And the other thing about the children not being at fault, and yeah, maybe Rob's right. Maybe it's going to be another story that comes out, and another story that comes out, and then it's going to be clear as to why he brought those up. So maybe there is a reason, or maybe, as Ro was saying, he's hurting, which he would be. He's whether it's because he's lost the love of his life, or whether it's because he's had to fork over a shit ton of money. Both may be true, and maybe he didn't pick his words very very well. Other than it seems that there is a direct line from his position or his opinions or his thoughts in that conversation around, in this current legal system, it doesn't matter what I want, to the allegations that Conservatives are looking to get rid of no-fault divorce.